These are book notes from Ken Kocienda's Creative Selection. So I just tried to do 5 lessons from this book. It's a great book about Apple. Ken worked on Safari, the original version. He worked on the iPhone keyboard and was the main developer designer for autocorrect and that functionality. And then he also worked on the iPad keyboard, which I use pretty much every day. And I mean, considering all of those things, if you use an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac, you probably use something that he's touched every single day, which is a pretty cool thing to think about and probably pretty cool for him to know. So the first thing, the book opens with him demoing, and he is demoing the iPad keyboard. They present 2 options, and then Steve Jobs stops and asks him which of the 2 he likes, or which of the 2 works better. And he makes this point that he tells Steve what he thinks, and that's something that that Steve Jobs respects, and he respects the work that went into it and values the opinion of the people that are working on these things. So the other thing that's in this book is it's a book with tons of demos, or stories about demos, different demos, and some demos are bigger than others. So you can imagine that demoing to Steve Jobs is not an everyday occurrence. So preparing for that is a lot different than preparing for, say, like a weekly demo to the team, or just like an offhand demo that you like grab someone from the hallway to look at. And I think that's just an important lesson in many things, is knowing your audience. So when you're setting up these demos, knowing the audience that you're going to have. So again, like if your audience is Steve Jobs and a bunch of executives, you're going to treat that demo differently as in all aspects, how long, what you show, what you don't show, things like that. And that's just an important thing with anything. Even like if you're writing, know your audience. That's one of the most important things that you can do. This other lesson, ask for help. One of the things he talks about is working at Apple, you're around very smart people, and at certain points you're going to need some help, so go ahead and ask for it. And he just talks about like, yeah, just the importance of working with a team, collaborating with other people. And it doesn't mean collaborating like making decisions by committee for everything with 30 people and you just pick who out like the most votes, but collaborating with asking the experts when you're stuck on something is important. And yeah, like there wouldn't be a point to working at a big tech company and just isolating yourself completely. Though some of the teams were isolated, like the first iPhone, I think he mentioned the team was maybe, I think like 15 to 25 people I think 25 people are on the first patent. So that team is isolated, but 25 people is still like there's going to be a lot of experts there. So even though that's a lot of people to work with, a lot of people to ask for help from. And then this other thing, he worked at Apple for more than a decade, and he says that he had 2 eureka moments. So these are not going to and he worked on major projects. So I thought that was interesting, and just like a realistic view of like work life. You can work at a very cool place, and if all you want are these blissful eureka moments, then that might be a disappointing thing. But this does just highlight like how great those moments can be. And there's plenty of good moments, great moments other than that. But yeah, he mentioned 2 of them. And also I thought it was interesting just how one of them was finally getting these 2 blocks on the screen. And yeah, that doesn't sound like, if you describe it to an outsider, just what you see on the screen, like, okay, we still have more work to do. But just imagining like the work that has gone into it, the hours that have gone into it, just to see some kind of result. And I remember in college, I had this electrical engineering project, and I was trying to get this LCD screen to work, just going through all these PDFs, a few like different forums in different languages are like badly translated. And finally getting the thing to turn on, and it was just hours and hours of work just trying to get the thing to turn on. Different kind of problem, but yeah, I do remember that feeling of just like, wow, we finally can make progress now. Um, and then last thing is this idea of having something to focus on, and this is something he says Steve Jobs was good about, or great at, probably one of the best at, is getting a team to focus on one thing at a time, having the one metric to work on. So with Safari, they focused on speed, and then this here is supposed to be like singing in the rain. And this is just that idea of demos and what you focus on for that demo, and removing things is just a big theme. So removing the autocorrect suggestions for the first version of the iPhone keyboard, and then again, that first story, like Steve Jobs says, like, hey, we don't need these two different versions of the keyboard, right? So which one do you like better? And it's just this theme, like removing as much cruft from different projects and staying focused. So that's that for these notes. Go check it out. It's a great book. If you're at all interested in Apple, in design, digital design, product design, hardware, software, it's super interesting. And I really liked it as far as like Apple books go. A lot of them are focused on Steve Jobs, and this was cool to see just the perspective from someone that was kind of like, I guess, like in the trenches kind of thing, is like individual contributor, just sharing stories from his time at Apple. Thanks for checking this out. I'll do more book notes in the future, so hit subscribe or thumbs up if you like this.